It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax.
Why should Americans trust you and House Democrats on the Jeffrey Epstein files when one of your own, Congresswoman Plaskett, was found to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing, getting information from him, using that in her questioning during a congressional hearing, and at one point he tells her, "Good job."
This is a bipartisan effort.
So we got some updates for you on the Democrat Epstein circus, because to make a long story short, here's what happened. This weekend, Trump came out in favor of Congress releasing the Epstein files now, and Democrats responded by essentially, it would appear, no longer wanting to actually release the Epstein files. It's like, what's going on there, right? Well, I think it's obvious. They're saying to themselves, wait a minute, if Trump is fine with it, then maybe he actually has nothing to hide. There's no way. It has to be a cover-up. It has to be a conspiracy. Yes, they're actually saying this. But I think more deeply, what is really being communicated here is they're really saying, no, what are we going to campaign on in the midterms, guys, right? That's what it's about. How, if they actually release it, and we won't just be able to speculate about Trump being a pedophile and take a bunch of crap out of context and in bad faith, and we actually just have the evidence that probably will implicate our own party much more than Donald Trump, if you, of course, know the history of Jeffrey Epstein and his actual life, then that's going to be a massive political problem. And Democrats are going to look really stupid, frankly, if they spend an entire year accusing Trump of being a pedophile and then it turn around and fall flat on their face. It's going to basically reverse what the issue did for, say, Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice just a couple of months ago. But guys, can we be completely honest at the same time that a huge component of this issue, this political discourse in 2025, has largely been an anti-Trump political op? It always was. I understand that makes some people mad, you know. People take it out of context. They think we're saying something that we're not. But just to be clear, as one example, I think when Trump was calling this issue a hoax, he was never referring to the Epstein victims or the actual case or situation. What he's referring to specifically, and hopefully by now you can see, is the very disingenuous, lying, bad faith way that Democrats are trying to weaponize this issue against Trump. And I think his frustration, rightfully or not, has been with a lot of the useful idiot Republicans who are basically going along with what the Democrats have wanted. So I'm not here to defend every single aspect of the way the Trump administration handled the Epstein stuff. Because sure, there were certainly some blunders that were made. But at the same time, it's hard now not to see, after everything we've been witnessing, why Trump viewed this issue as basically something of a distraction. And certainly why at this point, I'm hoping, you know, maybe it all worked out for the best, honestly. That allowed Democrats to really hype up this issue, make them look stupid. Sure, should it have been all released the way we wanted it from the beginning? Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's some context missing there. You know, woke judges actually block the release of certain files and all this stuff. But nonetheless, right, I hope this is the way it happens, okay? Let the Republicans release the file, shut up the Democrats, and then maybe not so much shut up the Democrats, because as it turns out, even more releases as of late, guys, are not implicating Donald Trump through these Epstein emails and texts and stuff like that. They're implicating Democrats. We'll tell you about this new one today featuring none other than current Democrat Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who it turns out Jeffrey Epstein himself, I know, big shocker, right? Nobody knew he was a lifelong Democrat. We're finding this out for the first time, I know. Was actually a big fan of Hakeem Jeffries. And this is what Democrats are trying to do, by the way. In the emails where Jeffrey Epstein, much like a normal resist-lib Democrat anti-Trump voter, right, was constantly seething about Trump, saying, oh, that's one of the worst people I know. He has no character. Simultaneously was hyping up, of course, the current leader of the Democrat Party. But this is the very guy trying to tie Trump to Epstein when, no, clearly Jeffrey Epstein endorses the Democrat Party. But anyways, we'll tell you all about this and more in today's video. Again, some updates on what Trump is saying, on what Democrats are saying, and even this brand new email that we have regarding Hakeem Jeffries. So we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, I mean, just to basically start off, I think this does summarize essentially how the Epstein issue has really been going for Democrats. And it is Chuck Schumer now trying to respond to a question about it. So take a listen.
Just, I guess, a question that's out there. Why wouldn't they have been released the last 4 years when President Biden was in office?
Well, that's the question every American is asking. Or not every American, but so many Americans are asking. What the hell is he hiding? Why doesn't he want them released? When you don't want something like this released, when even a whole lot of Republicans are calling for the release, his own party members, people ask the question, what's he hiding? It's got to be answered by releasing the files.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but the reporter's question was not about the Trump administration. It was about the Biden administration. The question was, why didn't you release these files or care about these files for the past 4 years? And if Chuck Schumer is going to deflect from the question and respond by saying, what the hell is he hiding? Why is it not released? Then to Chuck Schumer, certainly I asked the question, yeah, what exactly are the Democrats hiding? Could it be the fact, as they probably knew for a long time, but just thought it would be an issue they could try to weaponize in 2025, that actually Epstein was a pretty big Democrat? That they were never going to find some, backdoor conversation about, oh, Trump and Epstein were always hanging around with underage girls. Instead, they were emails that we've had released and we talked about, right? Of Epstein saying that Trump never engaged in the illicit or illegal behavior, despite the times they were together or whatever. He refused to. He asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. Jeffrey Epstein was even paranoid that Trump was the one who was alerting the police or taking them down. But instead, what did we really find is that Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was colluding heavily with the Democrat Party. In yesterday's video, we talked about Representative Stacey Plaskett and how in 2019, not like 2012 or something, guys, 2019, she was live texting Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing for advice on bad things to say about Donald Trump. Yeah, that's who Jeffrey Epstein was and always was, by the way. The moral authority figure of the Democrat Party, hence why they're still trying to do that today, right? They're weaponizing this issue exactly as Epstein would have wanted. Don't forget there's emails about them trying to talk about how can we figure out a way to disingenuously blackmail Trump so that way he can't win the presidency. Literally in his death, right? Democrats are living out that memory. This is what Epstein would have wanted, right? And we just found a new one here too, by the way. Check this out. A newly revealed email shows that Democrat funding group Dynamic SRG contacted Jeffrey Epstein, so Democratic Consulting Group basically, contacted Jeffrey Epstein in 2013 to promote the then freshman Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Does he sound familiar? Calling him Brooklyn's Barack, aka Temu Obama, right? While urging Epstein to support a major Democratic fundraising push. Yeah, it's almost like this guy, as we know, the shady, wealthy financier who, by the way, donated to Stacey Plaskett, always was donating to a bunch of Democrats, very close friends, it would appear, of like Bill Clinton and stuff, was essentially a Democrat donor, right? That's who Jeffrey Epstein was. And we knew this, by the way, guys. This is not new. It's only new to the Democrats who literally live in an alternate reality from us. Nonetheless, here's what that email reads, right? Dear Jeffrey, we are thrilled to announce that we are working with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, one of the rising stars in the New York congressional delegation, sometimes referred to as Temu Obama. That's not what it says, but, I'm going to paraphrase there. He is a staunch supporter of President Obama and a progressive voice for the people of New York City. New York's first did a profile piece, blah, 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 blah. But anyways, he's an impressive guy who will be a progressive voice in New York politics for years to come. Thanks. Essentially, right, would you like to get involved? Would you like to come to the fundraising dinner? Come and check him out, etc., etc. Very interesting, huh? Why was Hakeem Jeffries trying to suck up to Jeffrey Epstein? According to Democrat logic, this clearly proves that Jeffries and all the Democrats were involved with Epstein, right? Because they've been trying to grasp at straws far smaller than anything that exists on the Democrat Party. So we should use that logic back, right? Hakeem Jeffries, look at this totally not Photoshop picture of you next to Jeffrey Epstein. This clearly proves you were involved, right? But anyways, nonetheless, notice how this week the Democrats have slowly gotten quieter and quieter about the Epstein issue, because the more that's been released, the more it exonerates Trump. And the more it shows Jeffrey Epstein's, as we knew, guys, close relationship, right, to the Democrat Party. But nonetheless, here's what Trump said over the weekend. As I said on Friday aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from the Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. And again, I say, right, I'm not saying I don't want the files released. I'm not saying everything they did here was perfect. But it is also objectively undeniable that this is being used as a Democrat hoax. They are trying to distract potentially from other issues, with the nonsense, with even distract, right, from the very Epstein stuff that they're implicated in. So that's all true, But anyways, it goes on to say the Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages to the public on Epstein and are looking at various Democrat operatives like Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, etc., and their relationship to Epstein. And the House Oversight Committee can have whatever they are legally entitled to. I don't care. All I do care is that Republicans get back on point. Yes, I agree. Which is the economy, affordability, where we're winning big, our victory on reducing inflation from the highest level in history to practically nothing, bringing down prices for the American people, delivering historic tax cuts, gaining trillions of dollars of investment into America, the rebuilding of our military, deporting illegals, ending, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But he goes on here to point out rightly, nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive. And if the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members, quote unquote, of the Republican Party are being used. Something to think about. And we cannot let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats. He's right about that, as we've been pointing out, right? Not us. Make America great again. Now, the issue, of course, has been that, when you don't release them, when there's a lack of transparency, then people will rightfully think you have something to hide. But I think this is the best response, right? Release the files and then move on. Right. And if there's a bombshell in those files, let that damage go to the Democrats, where you can clearly tell it's going to belong and it's going to happen. Here's what Trump had to say more recently today while he was in the Oval Office.
Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others. They're all Democrats. All I want for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job. And I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. We've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. With Kennedy, we gave everything and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything and it's never enough. We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages, 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now, I believe that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. But they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. They cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time.
Boom. That to me is the perfect messaging on this issue. Okay, that's exactly how you do it, right? Yes, release the files. We want to see them. Transparency, all that stuff. Trump is also right, by the way, that to some people it will never be enough. They can release literally everything that they have. And the Democrats and some of the panicans are still going to say it's a cover-up. So I get all that. Okay. But release the files. Show what they show, which you can tell what they show. They're going to show how close Epstein actually was to the Democrat Party. And, okay, use it for whatever political attacks you want. I think Stacey Plaskett, that's a fair one. You should also maybe ask some questions about Clinton, and then the Hakeem Jeffries thing is kind of strange to say the least. I get it. I'm not saying he was with Epstein, but again, the relationship, yeah, as Trump is pointing out correctly, yeah, the guy was a Democrat. All the guy's friends were Democrats. You're seeing that from these emails. But at a certain point, right, do that. Go after people if you can find the evidence, but also don't let this, yes, Democrat op, and that's exactly what it is, create this gigantic political distraction from the actual issues that America's facing or that the administration and the Republican Party are trying to tackle, right? I think he balanced all that very well, okay? Very solid messaging. One might argue that if he was doing that from the beginning, the Democrats would have never had this, advantage or whatever to begin with. But at the same time, okay, I will again say, I kind of almost like the way this turned out, right? Because the Democrats really thought they were so cocky for so many months, and then now suddenly you see people like Kyle Kalinske pointing out, quote, the FBI must have finished up removing all references to Trump and Republicans, right? So this is the Democrat conspiracy theory now. Trump is only in favor of releasing it because it redacts all references to him. Well, actually, he's referenced a ton in those emails. We saw those emails. They don't make him look bad. They make him look good. And furthermore, the references we see that actually Jeffrey Epstein liked people, didn't hate people like Donald Trump, right? The people he liked were Democrats like Stacey Plaskett, like Hakeem Jeffries. It just goes on and on. So that's, of course, worth noting. But anyways, here's his meltdown and cope session.
Well, now he somehow managed to piss these people off too. So let's read some of these replies to him. Starting to sweat, Donnie, let's hear it from your mouth. You can keep deflecting. You campaign on releasing the Epstein files, so you lied to your supporters. Release the files. Not guilty people don't have meltdowns over hoaxes. Donald Trump is guilty, and if you deny the actual evidence, Epstein files, then you are just blind to the truth. The only hoax going on is coming from Donald Trump and his administration. Once again, as Trump has stated himself, if you keep telling the lie, they will eventually believe you. It is a hoax. If it is a hoax, then what is all the emails? Why the panic? Why the panic-held meetings? Why not release the information? Are you buying time to destroy evidence? For us regular people, if we do very naughty things, we go to prison for the rest of our lives. We aren't given promotions for it like you're allowing them to do. Just release it all, Trump. You fucking ran on that shit. You're a pedophile, Trump. At the point only your idiot fans still think you're innocent. You're losing the base. You're a fucking con man and all these idiots. Anyway, this goes on. Release the Epstein files, then prove that it's all a hoax. Trump is a pedophile. Bill Clinton is in the files. The only hoax is you. Your name is all over those emails.
Oh no, it's over for Trump. You mean to tell me that a couple of liberals made a bunch of Truth Social accounts and trolled him in the comments and called him a pedophile? How will he ever recover from this? Have you seen what's in those emails? Yeah, we have. We covered it extensively. They just exonerate Trump and show how much of a Democrat Jeffrey Epstein was. Again, So that's worth noting. It's worth noting as well, you're already seeing the new Epstein attack line, and it has to do with this woman right here, Stacey Williams. We'll explain who that actually is in a second because it's exactly as you would predict. But nonetheless, now MSNBC is apparently putting this woman on television who claims that she was a short-term girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein back in 1993 and that Trump groped her. By the way, worth noting at the time, she was 25 years old or something. So we went from Trump was a pedophile, always hanging around with Jeffrey Epstein, to, okay, he wasn't a pedophile, but he was still hanging around with Epstein, but this happened here. But again, as we'll show you in a second, I think there's reason to be skeptical of this story. But nonetheless, right? So now that they can't deal with the files, because nothing in the files looks good for them, now they're like, okay, let's bring this Epstein accuser on TV and see what she has to say. So take a listen.
Yes, I dated Jeffrey Epstein very briefly. Yes, I dated Jeffrey Epstein very briefly in 1983. And, his best friend at that time was Donald Trump. They had a very close friendship. And one day I was on a walk with Jeffrey and he said, let's stop in and see Donald in his office at Trump Tower. And I said, okay. And we walked in there. And Trump proceeded to grope me right outside of his office door while Jeffrey just stood there and watched. His hands were all over my body, and it was very odd because the two of them were talking about I don't, something not about the groping. They were having a conversation. I don't remember what it was about, and smiling, continuing on with their conversation as if the groping wasn't happening, which caused me to sort of freeze up and be utterly confused about what was going on. After the incident, and it was, very brief, just a couple of minutes, we took the elevator, down, and Jeffrey's energy was very dark and sort of stormy and angry, and we got it on the street, and he just ranted at me and asked me, he kept saying, why did you let him do that? Why did you let him do that? And I remember being utterly confused, like, yeah, why did I? What just happened? And as I came into my body, I got the sense that the whole thing was coordinated.
Yeah, well, a totally believable story that she doesn't seem to remember very key details of, right? But it's worth noting, of course, that this very woman, Stacey Williams, only came out with these accusations 31 years later. Very coincidentally, do you see that date right there? October 24th, 2024. Gee, I wonder what came shortly after, just a couple of days later. Yeah, major election maybe, huh? 31 years after Stacey Williams says she was groped by Donald Trump while Jeffrey Epstein watched back again in 1993, according to them, the 56-year-old writer, consultant, and former Sports Illustrated swimsuit model went public this week with her allegation. So only in 2024, right before the election, did she go public with the allegation. Not any years before, okay? Not even back in 2019. Let us not forget, that's the year Jeffrey Epstein got taken down, arrested. He was the talk of the entire world, essentially. No, never said anything. 2020, never said anything. January 6th, no, nothing. No. Right before the election, oh, let me come out with that. Yeah. Believe what you will about it, but it's just something I would like to point out. Also would like to point out, Stacey Williams herself, as you can see from Newsweek, used to be an activist for Barack Obama while denying the latest allegations against him. Oh, yeah, but, this definitely happened, guys, right? Totally. No, 100%. She actually joined a call in a group called Survivors for Kamala, a cohort of more than 200 survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, backing Kamala Harris in her bid to win the presidential election next month. And then, of course, just comes out. It's just a total coincidence. That's when she finally went public with the claim that while she was dating Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump just, I guess in the middle of a doorway, just started like grabbing her in the you-know-what places. It's like, what? The story barely makes sense. But yeah, that's what they're trying to run with now, right? Because I know the file situation is actually not working with them. Also, by the way, a brand new clip just popped into my feed, so let me show you this right here. Hakeem Jeffries was just confronted about the fact that, as we covered yesterday, right, a congressional Democrat colluded with Jeffrey Epstein to harm Donald Trump in 2019. And we'll take a listen to the horrible excuse he had for this.
Peter Jeffries. Why should Americans trust you and House Democrats on the Jeffrey Epstein files when one of your own, Congresswoman Plaskett, was found to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing, getting information from him, using that in her questioning during a congressional hearing, and at one point he tells her, good job?
This is a bipartisan effort to make sure that, consistent with what the survivors have requested, that there's full and complete transparency, and every single predator who may be in those Justice Department files doesn't escape accountability. Thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you care about every single predator if they're a registered Republican. That's about it, Hakeem. But anyways, there you essentially have it, okay? A great summary, I would say, in that final clip of how this issue is actually playing out for Democrats and why it's backfiring. But nonetheless, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.